Now I've got a simple Rhodes part here with a 4-tap delay set with a fairly tight time. If I increase this, you hear the individual taps. But at a lower rate, it's more like a modulation chords type of effect. And I'm grouping the taps closer together to enhance that effect. But you'll hear as I move this, it's an interesting variation to the modulation. So we can use the modulators to move that for us. We have a choice of typical LFO, low-frequency oscillator shapes here, sine and triangle, and rectangular is a new one with harder edges and more of a stepped sound between the values. And I'll go with sine wave for now, and the idea is that it applies a repeating cyclical form to the destination that we set. And in this case, I want the destination to be the taps. So I'm going for delay spacing and here. Now we can modulate above or below in either minus or positive mode, or both ways when it's in the middle, and that's what I want. And we set the depth of the modulation here. So here, I'm going to enable this, and if I increase the rate, you really hear the movement. I want it a bit slower to add that non-regular, in that it's not synced to tempo, variation. But let me increase it for a moment so we can really hear what it's doing. Now I'm going to dial this down. With the phase, we can determine where in the sine wave it's going to start from. And the pulse width kind of skews the shape of the sine wave in this case. So it kind of rounds it out nicely. So we get a nice fluid sound. And this will add randomization. And as with the delay module, we can set the timing here if we want to sync it to tempo. And I can go with a more angular motion, or the rectangular with harder kind of transitions between the values, depending how we skew it with this. We'll go back to sine wave and dial that down. Now here we have two modulators, and I can set this to follow a different parameter. In this case, I want it to modulate the timing over here, again, to enhance this modulation style effect. So I have it set to delay time. And I'm using the envelope follower, which uses the envelope of the source signal based on the attack and release that we have set here, and applies that to the destination. And I'll weigh this more towards the wet so we can really hear what it's doing. I can shorten the release, and we hear that buzzing from this moving too quickly. So a slower release. I can slow the attack. And somewhere around there is nice. And then we can amplify the envelope or attenuate it. So I'll dial it down a bit, and I can bring the effect into taste. Here on these offbeat plucks, I've got 4-tap delay set again. I'll bring it in. And I've got it synced to dotted eighths. And we got a nice kind of rolling rhythm with some pans on the repeats. Now here I've got this modulator set to rectangular deliberately for the angular rough edges, set to the delay time. And listen to the effect. So it speeds them up almost randomly based on the value we have set here. And I can add randomization with the chaos. And I'll leave it a little bit more predictable. I'm going to turn that off for a moment. And here again, I'm using the rectangular shape set for the spacings, but positive modulation only, to skew them. And we can set the rate here to determine how quickly we want the variations happening. I'll exaggerate. A slower rate will shift the timing variations more subtly. And adding this in, we get that nice kind of buzzing with the slightly offset taps. Here I've got a clean electric bass. I'm going to bring this in. It's a bit louder because we're emphasizing the wet part. And I'm going to bring in an object. Adds a nice kind of metallic clang to it. Can shorten the decay a bit. And now I'm going to modulate some of the parameters here of this object. Now I've got this set to RMS, and it generates a control signal based on the loudness of the audio. And the time knob sets the average window. Longer times are more stable and shorter times react more quickly to level changes. Now because this is a smooth envelope, it responds to the overall energy of the signal rather than transients. So with a low time, I can boost the gain knob, which amplifies the RMS output signal, and get some interesting movement. So it moves as the note fades based on the amount here, and it's going bipolar, modulating both positive and negative values around this material. So it changes the timbre as the note fades. Now here I've got the same source set up to modulate the formant, positive only since I'm starting at a low position. And again, quick time, because I don't want it particularly smooth. I want it oscillating. And I'll just dial it into taste. Here I've got this set for a quick tight doubling effect. So I want to modulate the time. We can use pitch as the source, where the pitch is converted, the fundamental frequency is converted to a control signal, and will modulate the destination, in this case, delay time. So based on the range, we're getting subtle movement. Now I'm going to bring in an object. We hear the resonating, but I'm going to use pitch to track the frequency. And now the frequency will follow the pitch of the vocal. Without it, and I'm going only above, but I could go in both directions. But this is a little more tonal and subtle. So those are some ideas on how you can use the modulators to add interest and movement to Objeq Delay 2.